this is now the beginning, since we're now starting the recording, and it's great to see everybody again, or new people. It's really good to see you. I just want to know, you can all hear me, right? There's no problem. Everything okay? Give me some sort of thumbs up or something. Thank you, Marcella. Okay, so yeah, okay, and here, whatever. If you can't, if there's a problem in hearing, or if there's a problem in any sense, let me know. You can't see the screen, which I'm sharing at the moment, and will later be sharing essentially throughout the session. Just let me know. For those that don't know, my name is Jack Pillemer, with EduSoft, teacher training, pedagogical implementation, and today's session is devoted to the teacher management system. And this training session will focus primarily on the TMS, its functions for teachers, with the main not the main focus, but a large part of it is going to actually focus on reports. And through the TMS, you've provided with many resources that can help you monitor your students and promote your students' learning. And I want to spend today's session focusing on these features, both in terms of how you access them and what you do with them, and as importantly is what you can do with them as a teacher to get you to use the features to promote student learning, the value of the features, not just how to, but what are they there for. And some of the session is going to be interactive, where I'm going to ask you to work together with me on some of the reports, to look at them and see what kind of conclusions we can reach, and in that way learn how we can use, I said, with the focus being on reports, how we can use all aspects, but as I said, reports. So just to move right in, we're going to the webinar objectives. We're going to become familiar with the features of the TMS, registration, curriculum, reports, settings. These are all the menus that you have at the top: communication, resources, assessment, and services. And it starts off with the dashboard, and I'm going to have a look at that dashboard. We're going to log in a minute and look at that dashboard, and the whole time consider how the TMS can assist us in promoting student progress. That's the idea. So I'm basically now going to move on. I'm going to log in. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, just so that I can log in, and then I'll share again. So bear with me. Okay, let's just make sure that you can see this. Okay, you should very soon be able to see my screen as a full screen. Can you see it? Okay, thanks, Fred. Okay, so thank you. So I'm now logging in as a teacher into the student platform, and here I go. The first thing I'm going to see when it loads, first it picks up all of my information with regard to which classes I teach, and provides me with a snapshot of my classes. I can understand very quickly what's going on. Well, it looks, I don't know if you can think that that helps me understand very quickly, because it looks quite complicated, but it's not nearly as complicated as it looks. And it does give me a snapshot, and I want to show you what that snapshot is. First of all, over here, allows me to choose my classes. I've got Training 2022, which is you. Today, I've got other groups. Those are the names of your classes. If you're a teacher, I'm a teacher, so this is my classes. Then which course they are studying. I can choose the course if they've got more than one course. Okay, so that's, and I press go, and that brings up the data that you can see at the moment. Okay, so the first thing I can see is on the left-hand side, course completion. This gives me a picture of where my students are in terms of the completion of that course. So this course has 5 students in it. 4 of them are right between 0 and 20% completion. 1 of them is between 41 and 60 completion. This is not a great situation. You want your students to be more or less in the same place. You want your students to be moving, okay? At least depending on the model. Again, it's different universities and different schools have different models. But if you're expecting students to do a certain amount per week, you would expect them to then move on more or less at the same pace. So, and if I've got a roll over here and it says 4 students have completed between 0 and 20%. And if I roll over here to say 1 student has completed between 41 and 60%. If I don't understand this, I've got an explanation here with this little I. And it tells me this chart enables you to see the overall progress of the class through a course. The chart is divided into 5 ranges. And here are my 5 ranges. So in other words, I can get an explanation with these little I buttons over here, information buttons. I can also drill down and get the actual report. I'm not going to do that because we're going to get to the report via the TMS in a few minutes. So I don't have to do it now. But I could, if I wanted to, drill down to class completion report. Okay. My next report is average test scores. Average test scores tells me my lesson tests, the quizzes, what we call component tests. All of those names together basically are the little tests at the end of each lesson. And here tells me in every unit what the average is. Again, this is not a typical class. I've got some students doing one, some students doing another, but it tells me in unit 1, the average is 44. If I put my mouse over it, it tells me that 2 students have done these tests in this unit, have done all the tests in this unit, and the class average at this point is 44. The highest range is 67 and the lowest is 20. Again, don't take these numbers as being typical, because as I said, it's me playing with the class and trying out different things. But you should get your students, you should have, all of your students should have completed it, and your range should be somewhere high, hopefully. Okay, and if it's not, this gives you that picture. The same story, you get the information here and you can drill down. So first of all, just very quickly, you can see what's going on in terms of their tests, their quizzes, and where they are. The next thing, you get a kind of a summary per unit, which repeats some of the information above, gives you a little bit more, but it's more graphic. It tells you what the average completion is per unit, plus the average test score per unit, plus what's the average time spent on that unit by your class. You can toggle that with skills, and you can see from your class what is these are skills: listening, this is reading, this is speaking, and this is grammar. And it'll tell you what the test scores are for the units which focus on those things, not the units, the lessons that focus on these specific skills. It also gives you how much time, on average, students have spent. It's your whole class, remember, not individual students. Not looking at an individual student here, looking at your whole class. That's why I said it's a picture of your class. Then you can go down. Placement test results are not very important for you as teachers, but they might be important because if all of the students, let's say the administrator puts all of the students in the beginning in one class for the purposes of placement only, then you get a picture here of how many students you've got in each, and you can get them here. Okay, there are 2 of them, first discoveries, 1 of them is basic 1 of them, okay. So, but this is not really that important for the teachers, because you basically, as teachers, you get that information anyway. You don't get that information. You get your students, you get your course, and you teach them, or you follow them, or you monitor them. But for administrators, this might be useful. And again, clicking into the placement test report, which we're going to look at, allows administrators to see how many people did what and where they should be. Less important for teachers. And then you get your midterm test, class average, final test, class average, same story. So now we've got a picture of we've logged in and we've got a picture of our class. And I can go through each of my classes, change it at the top, look at each one if I want to, if I've got lots of classes, just to get a quick picture. Okay, I'm now finished with the dashboard, and I'm going to move on to the menus at the top. Registration, curriculum, reports, settings, communication, resources, assessment, and services. And all of them, each one in their own way, offers you as a teacher or as an administrator or as an English coordinator, offers you something which is valuable. Really, each one in different ways. They're not just technical little to-do things. They can help you promote your students' learning or help you solve a problem as a teacher, whatever. So I want to try and focus on the actual feature and what you can do with it. So the first is pretty simple. As a teacher, you've only really got two things that you see. As an administrator, you see more than this. But as a teacher, classes, students. So you can see the list of your classes. These are my classes. In each class, if you want to create internal groups within a class, in other words, you want to organize your students so that you've got advanced students, less advanced students, or you want afternoon students as opposed to morning students, or students you want to give extra work to and students you don't want to give extra work to. Any kind of organization, students that have got blonde hair and students that have got whatever you want to do. If you want to divide your class in any way, what you simply do is you click here and you can create a group. That means a name for a group. I've got A and B, and if I added C, it would simply create a space for another group. Now that's, at the moment, that's useless. But if I now move to students and I look at the students that I've got in my class, so I'm going to students, I choose my class. By the way, this is the way the TMS works always. You choose your class, and then from then on, you follow what you have to do until you eventually press go, and then you make whatever arrangements you want to make, changes you want to make, and then you save or don't save. In other words, that's always the way it works. You choose your class, and then you move from there. So here, I'm choosing my class. At the moment, I don't have any students in any groups. So I'm just going to press go. I ignore it, and it'll give me a list of all my students. Here they are. Jack student, Mary Smith, student 3, 4, and 5. These are the names of my students. Okay, now I want to, let's say, put student 5 and student 4 into a group of their own for whatever reason. That means that I can then give them tests separately if I want to. I can give them separate learning materials. I can look only at their reports and not at anybody else. Just create a group within your class. I don't know if that's useful for you, but it may be. It may be. Depends on what your model is. Depends on how intimately you're involved with your students on that sort of a level that you'd want to separate and so on. Maybe you want to give certain students extra work. Then that would be a way to do it, because then you can assign only to that group. So what I do here is I choose my students and I simply say move them. It will then ask me where. I'll say group, and it'll move them into that group. They'll stay within the same class, but there'll be a separate group within the class. So I don't know if that's valuable, but it's potentially valuable for somebody who's working quite intensively with their students. By the way, notice this, just a shortcut that you need to see, where you've got this little down arrow. Select all in page or select all in scope. It just can make your life a lot easier. If you've got long lists, you can, and let's say you've got something over 3 pages, then you don't want to go and select in each page, select over scope, it will select them. All right, so I don't actually want to move my students. I don't want to do anything, but I could, if I wanted to, put them into groups. I'm finished now with registration. I'm now going to move on to curriculum. Curriculum has 2 critical, well, has, I would say, 1 critical menu and another one that I think is very, very important, but I don't know how much you use it, depending on your institution and how you work, and then all the others which I will relate to. So let me start with the first. Assign courses. Assigning courses is your the way you give your students their materials. Now, this might be done at the beginning of the course, and the student is given the entire course from beginning to end, and it's not even done by you, it's done by an administrator. That might be the case. The other case is you might assign basic 1, basic 2, basic 3 to your students. You might just be assigning the course. I don't know. Or you might be assigning not only the course, but the units in that course. What I really want to say, and I'm going to show you how this works, is the platform allows you to assign down to the single lesson at a time if you want. I'm not saying you should do that all the time, but if you want to give 2 lessons, you can give 2 lessons. If you want to give 1 unit, you can give 1 unit. If you want to give 3 units, you want to give a whole course, it allows you to go down, really, to go down quite far and individualize the way you work, either for the students or for yourself. So, for example, I'm now going to select my class. And I selected my class. Remember, I didn't move them into groups, but if I wanted to, I could give only students in group A, only students in group B. I'm just going to ignore that because I don't want to do that. Most teachers don't need the groups. And then I could give it to 1 student if I wanted. I want to give 1 student some work, I can. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to give it to the whole class. That's the bottom line. Okay. And as you can see, here are the courses that I can assign. You won't have such a long list. You'll have a much shorter list. Okay. I've got all kinds of odds and ends here. Okay. You will get whatever your university has bought and can provide, and they've decided upon is what you want. Okay. These are all different sort of put together pieces or different aspects, but whatever courses you've got will appear there. So let's say I'm sticking with basic 1, basic 2, basic 3. I've given the student 3 courses, which I shouldn't. I should, as far as I'm concerned, every student should have 1 course. I don't see why a student should have more than 1 course. Although somebody, was it yesterday, in the last session, brought up the situation of where they give 2 courses, or 3 courses because they want to try to find the right level. It was with the CASA standards and so on. I remember somebody mentioned that. I've forgotten who it exactly was. But I'm saying you normally would give 1 course. I'm going to leave it at 3 for the moment, just because for my own demonstration purposes. Okay, and then you can go down. Remember these pluses? You can drill down, and I can give unit 1, and I can give unit 2, and I can give every unit. Or I can decide I don't want them to do every unit. I want them to do unit 1 in week 1. So they won't get confused. They can only do unit 1 in week 1. There'll be no more and no less. Makes it very simple. They know that's what they have to do. They log on. There's the work for the week. I might even go further and say, okay, I want to teach the grammar in class before they see it online. So I don't want them to do the grammar. And I can get rid of it. And then they won't see the grammar. Or the opposite. I want them to do the grammar as an introduction, and then I'm going to do it in class. So these are all the options that are available for you. Each of you, different systems, different approaches to your teaching, different institutions, but these are the features. Basically, what I'm really trying to say is you can go down to the student level, to the lesson level, and assign materials. Okay, I would now press save. I'm not going to press save because I don't want to save what I've done. Videos, okay, and that's that. Now, I now want to show you the next important aspect of curriculum, and that's access to the student platform. You as teachers don't have licenses as users, as students. You have licenses because you can go in and look at a class. You aren't students. You can't work as a student unless you are. But I mean, normally the teacher doesn't get a student license. So how do you see the student platform? How do you see what's there? Well, the moment you click on access to student platform, it brings you into the student platform, allows you to see what the student can see. It will show you all the courses that are available to you. It won't record anything that you do. It won't set anything that you do on the platform. It won't remember anything that you do, but that'll show you all of the materials, it'll show you all of the lessons, and you'll be able to see what the student has available and what you're assigning and unassigning and so on to the students. So that is the next really important menu, not menu, tab, not even a tab, I don't know what you call it. Okay, then you have view all courses. Well, that'll just allow you to see all the courses that are available for you. Okay, and you can look at them. It's not, you don't need that as such. Assigning it, you can do it from assigning. You can look at them. Perhaps I should have said that. If you click on the I over here, it will tell you what that course is. By the way, can you see this pop up? Because sometimes with Zoom, pop-ups don't appear. You can. Okay, thanks, Anna. So it explains what the course is so you can understand. It gives you the metadata of the course, the background of what that course is. So you can click on any of those I's and it will give you that information. Okay. And if you click on this I, you see this little I over here that, I don't know if you see it, kind of the eyelashes go up and down when you click. If you click on that, it will take you into the lesson. So you can go from here straight into the lesson if you want to see what it's all about. The shortcut onto the student platform. Okay. Now I'm going to move on and just mention all the others I could think of what these menus, I don't know, that appear here, and mention them, but I'm actually not going to deal with them now at all. Course Builder, forget about Study Planner for a moment, and the authoring tool and the course sequence are all tools to allow you as an institution or you as a teacher to build your own material, to write your own material, or to take EduSoft's material and rearrange it. For that, I need a separate training session or a separate exposure session. I don't have time for that now, but I want you to know that it is possible. This is usually decided on an institutional level, not on a personal, not on a teacher deciding he wants to do something, because you've got to then, once you build a course, you've got to then put it in, it's got to be put in the package. Not complicated, but it has to be done in an organized fashion. It's not just you build it and let the students see it. So that's a decision that the institution has to take. And these are all of the tools that help you do that. I'm now going to get to reports. Reports are where I said I was going to give most of the time, even though there's still lots to tell you about, but I'm going to now spend a little time on these reports. Okay. Placement, reports. I've got 4 here. Placement test reports, course reports, writing assignments, gradebook. I'm going to spend just a second on this because, again, this is usually not teachers who need this. It's usually administrators. But it's a useful thing to know. Placement test reports tells you where your students have been placed based on the test that they did on the ED platform. And there are 3 different types of reports, and I'm just going to show you one of them. Well, I'm going to choose my class, and if that makes a difference here. Okay, and I'm going to ask for the placement test results. You can get a summary and you can get a status of whether someone's done it once or twice. I'm just saying test results, which is the basic. Go, and you will find now that I've got a list of my students, this is all the students at the moment, because I haven't chosen my class. So this is all the students, and notice that my pages can go on and on and on. And what it really does, I can export this information to an Excel file, and that means I can have everything in one place and know what that placement, let's say 1,000 people tested. You can then export that, look at it, organize that, and so on. But what I really want to show you is it gives you 3 scores and then a final score. In other words, it gives you a placement for reading, a placement for listening, and a placement for grammar. And then the placement, which is sort of the combination of their scores. And sometimes it's obvious, like first discoveries should do first discoveries. But sometimes it's a mix. I think in this class, it's a mix. One of the students, if I'm not mistaken. I think student number 5, intermediate, no, student number 4. Basic 3 for reading, basic one for listening, intermediate one for grammar. So it's a bit complicated, but the algorithm decides based on looking at that information is that they should be placed in basic 3. Okay, so that might be helpful. And also the placement test is just a recommendation. Obviously, your own information about the student, what they come with, together with this is useful. Okay, so now I'm finished with placement tests. Now I'm going to go into course reports. Course reports are here. There are different types. I'm going to skip the first, go to the second. Class completion. That will give you what units your students have done and how much they've done within a class and other aspects. So let's have a look at that first. Class completion is, I think, one of the most useful reports. I recommend teachers use this report a lot. So here's my class going in. Remember, if I wanted to look at a group, I could, but I haven't done that. I'm just reminding you that I could have separated if I wanted, but I just ignore it. Whenever they ask you to choose a group or a particular student, just ignore it if you don't want to, and then it will give you all of it. So here's my class, and I can see I should be an unhappy teacher. I've only got one student who seems to be working and doing all work, and even he is not finishing his units. And then, in other words, I've got a bit of a mess here. I shouldn't be a happy teacher here. Okay, but it shows me unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, where everybody is. It shows me how much they've done. So I can really get a very clear picture of how things are going. And these are based on the courses that's been assigned to them. And as I said, it should usually only be one course. But if for any reason it's more, you can check each course separately. That's class completion. I can then go for class test scores, which these are, again, the quizzes at the ends of lessons. And you'll find here, it will include it will give me the average for each of their units, if I want that. And then the next one I have, class summary. Well, this report is useful at somewhere if you want to just find out what percentage has been done by different students. It tells you how much. It doesn't go into the units. It's less detailed than the first one that I gave, which had the units included. It also has the average test scores, so we can get a picture of each student. The next one is time on task, and that is how long the student has spent working on the platform. And you get per unit, you get the total that appears here. If the computer is left idle for a long time, it stops recording the time. I would say short, and people who don't work a lot should be noticed. People who do work a lot, you don't really know if they're really working or they're busy clicking and then going and having themselves coffee and then clicking another one. So you don't really know. But it's easier here to pick up students who don't work than those who do, if that's important. Then end of course matrix is, I'm not going to go into this now, but for institutions that don't know what this is, it's possible to take all of our automatic assessment criteria, let's say tests, completion, midterm test, final test, and create a matrix and give each of those aspects a percentage value, a weight. And therefore, at the end of the course, you can just click it and it will give you where everybody stands, who passed, who failed, who's got 70% and who's got 20%, when everything comes together. So that's the course matrix, and that also, I'm not going to go into now. It's usually something which is decided upon by the institution and not by the teacher. Okay. Then we have student recordings. Now, this means I can listen to the students. You know what? Let me jump to the next one. Course test report. So now these are now talking about the midterm or the final course test, not the little quizzes. So I can get their grades, kind of obvious. And so these are their grades. And I can also get, which is something which is very useful, and it's a new report, it didn't used to be here, course test status. And that tells me who's done what, whether the test is expired. It's got like all of the kind of the details about it. So if I go in here, let me see what I've got. Oh, I didn't choose my test. It's the midterm, let's say. Go for basic one. And it, well, in this case, it's really simple because I all assigned it. But the status is assigned, 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 assigned. Let me do this, course test. I'm changing the test of the report. Expired, expired, incomplete, unassigned, expired. So it gives you a real picture of what's happening in your class. What is expired means they didn't do the test and the time is over. Unassigned means they never got it. So whatever it is, you get, that report is pretty useful for a teacher and an administrator to know what's going on. Okay, and that again can be exported as all of the other reports can. Okay, so that's course reports. Now I'm now going to student recordings, and I'm going to show you something here. Your students can send sound to the teacher. Now, some institutions take that data and use it. Some institutions don't. It depends on what you want to do with it. And there are two types of sound bites that teachers can get. One is the pronunciation type, when they do little pieces of sentences, half a sentence, send to your teacher. They use voice recognition, and it says send to the teacher. That's one type. And that's perhaps, I don't know, in my mind, perhaps less useful to actually assess, but you can. I'm going to show you how. The second is some of our units have free speech, where students can speak for up to a minute based on a topic. And here there really is good reason to listen to what students say and to assess them and to use that information. It really is. And I'm going to just show you what I mean by that. Okay, I'm not saying that you can't assess the other. You can assess both. You'll see we've got rubrics and it all works. But I really think it's useful to use the fact that students have to speak in full minutes and send it to the teacher. It's a useful feature of the platform, and I think it could be used well. So I'm now going to go to student recordings. This is this, and I'm going to choose one student. I'm going to choose my Mary Smith, who some of us met a day or two ago. And we have got to, here we've got, let's say, this one in the library. The computer gave it 100. The computer gave it 100. So I could just write here 100 if I wanted to. Or I could just go, excellent, excellent, excellent. That's fine, and save score, and the student will get 100. That's what they'll see. I could, yeah, I see, computer gave it 50. Now, I am not going to bore you with this, but I listened to it. And part of the problem was the sound was bad. In other words, it wasn't really that the student wasn't speaking very well. The sound was not great. So I would have listened to it differently. And I thought, the phonemes were good, intonation and stress was excellent. And the overall pronunciation was good. Okay. So it gives me a grade of 87, and I can save that grade. That's one way, and not one way, that's the short little pieces. But here I've got, one second, cancel. Why I'm not so bad. You haven't saved it. Yes, I know. Okay. Here I've got a longer piece, and I can listen to it. I don't know if you'll be able to hear this. I forgot to add sound. Can you hear? Okay, please believe me, it was me talking for a minute. I didn't include sound when I shared, for some reason, the platform. But never mind. It's somebody speaking for a minute. It's me doing it. And so I could listen to it, and there is real content here. Have they answered the question? Not really. Use of English? Poor. Overall pronunciation? Fair. And then I get a grade here. And I can save that score, and it will go to the student. So this is another option that you can have in grading, and it appears under course reports, student recordings. Finally, I want to get to the first report, which is student progress. This allows you to take one student, drill down into their specific work on a until they're kind of almost onto a step-by-step level, if you want to, and it can be useful. So look at this, student progress. Here we go. I'm going to choose Jack student, I think. I should follow my notes so I don't show you. And I'm going to look not in first discoveries. He did basic 1. And here I've got, okay, this is Jack's student, and I want to see how the student is doing. This is basic 1. These are all of the units. I don't want to look at all of the units. I want to look how he did in his first unit. I should be doing this not once he's finished it. I should have been doing it. In other words, I shouldn't have the whole course. It should be along the way, I should be looking. Okay, and here we go. And I see Meet a Rockstar is the name of the unit. It's divided into lessons. Can you see this? Okay, is that fine? Is that any better? Make any difference? Yeah? Okay. So here it is, Meet a Rockstar. Listening is the first lesson is called Art. The second is called Meet Me. Third is called Max's Room. The first one focuses on listening. The second focuses on reading, and so on. Here are all over here are the names of the lessons. So I get information about the student in that lesson. He completed this lesson. He didn't complete this lesson. He started this lesson. He started. I immediately get that information. I also get test scores, but let me go straight in. I'm going to click again and I'd say, okay, he did step 1, completed. He did step 2, completed. He did step 3, completed, no problem. His test score, the last time he did the test, he got 60. But actually he did the test twice. And his average is 70. So I don't know how he did that, because he seems to have got a lower grade before. We probably got a higher grade, whatever. As I said, don't look for the logic. This is me playing. But it allows you to see how many times he did the test, what his current score is, and what his average is. Okay. So, and the same, let's say, if I go now to read me. So I see here, he did the explore, he did half the practice, and he did the test. And if I go, let's say, to grammar, he didn't do this, he didn't do this, he just did the test, and he got 95. And he did it once, so he probably finds it really very easy. That's my only conclusion. He didn't do any work, did the test, got it not mostly right. So that's my conclusion. I can come to some conclusion. He's in the wrong place. It's too easy for him. Maybe I should give him something else. It allows me to really drill down to the individual student if I want to. I keep on stressing, you don't have to do this on every student, especially if you've got hundreds of students. But you can, and I'm talking now to a group of 69 people who are involved with their students. Some of you work with small groups, some of you work with thousands. So I'm giving you the features, and you see how they can fit into your needs. Okay. Okay, so now I've dealt with all of the reports that appear here. I now want to basically jump to my PowerPoint. So let me see if I can do this without stopping sharing and see that it opens. Can you see my PowerPoint? Reports?
Yes.
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 Okay.
It's everything there.
Yes,
Yeah,
Jack.
reports. Yeah, okay, great.
Yes.
All right. Great. Thanks. So now, reports. Look at this. I now need you to use your thinking caps. You're going to see, I'm just going to quickly remind you, this is what we looked at, all these different reports. This is one report which shows you their class summary, not lots of detail. Names of your students, course completion, average test scores. Choose the course. The second one is class completion, which I said is a really useful report, I think anyway. Tells me how students are doing. So clearly, Cordero it stopped working for some reason. Okay, so then let's try this. I'm going to open my chat so that I can see what you write. Look at this. We've got student A, B, C, D, and so on, up to N. I would like you to think to yourselves, have a look at this. They should have, the course is 10 weeks or 10 units. We're now in the 8th unit. So we're not looking at 9 and 10 at the moment. Okay, let's say I didn't even open it for them because I could assign it and decide not there. So now, what action should have been taken quite a long time ago? Maybe it was taken, maybe it wasn't. But just if this was the report and we're looking at it towards the end, what action should have been taken? Into the chat. Have a look. What action should have been taken? And you can say, with regard to A and D, with regard to this, you can write whatever. I'm not seeing your chats. Why not? Maybe nobody's writing. Anna, are you writing? You're smiling. So, there we go. Julie's writing. Contact the student to see what's wrong. Which students? Why? What might be wrong? Okay. The question is, what action should have been taken? And you said contact the students. Okay. Keep looking. Or keep. What else what do you see? Support A and D to use the program. Okay. I'm trying to think, what does it mean? They've never even logged on. They've never even logged on. It's more than support they need. They need something else. There's more than support. Okay. So now I can see now your brains are beginning to work. You're beginning to look. You're beginning to respond. I see all of the answers coming in here. So the second question is, what action should be taken now? And by and large, what conclusions can you reach? And I'm going to now, there we go. What did you say there? There was someone who said something about if. Let me go back and see what you said. Sorry. Oh, well, never mind. I'm sorry. The person who said so I wanted to see, but there's so many people writing that it's just moving like flashing in front of me. Okay, so let's have a look here. Clearly, we've got a problem here. These students never logged on. 8 weeks ago, 2 months ago. What I should have done, maybe I did, is find out whether they are still alive. Find out whether they've paid for the course. Find out whether they're still with me or they're not. Find out whether they never got usernames and passwords. Find out something. Then I've got the next two who did get usernames and did get passwords. They did start, but they never got past the first 5 clicks. Then I've got this one, stopped in the middle. What happened? Then I've got this one, stops and never finishes anything. So I can get a very clear picture. So, but basically, the conclusion is this class is not functioning well enough. I shouldn't be happy with this class. There are too many students at this stage who are not going to complete. Start counting all of those numbers, all of the colors are students who've got some sort of problem. Action should have been taken, and it may be too late. So clarify why students A and D have never logged in. As I said, all the reasons that I suggested. Maybe they don't know, maybe they don't care, maybe they're no longer part of the course, maybe the university should know because whatever, I don't know. Clarify why students H and M have logged in once and not progressed at all. That means they know how to, they've got what they should. Then all of those who have not, basically to follow up. All right, so now here's another one. Let's do another of these exercises. Student progress report. This is a detailed progress report for one student. Don't try analyze this yet. This is just an explanation. My question is going to come later. So you can drill down. I'm just reminding you. You click on the unit and then you drill down and then you can see the unit. You can choose the lesson. Within the lesson, you can choose the step. Within the steps, at the end of it, you can see the average test score, and you can see how many times they've taken a test. So now here's the exercise. This is a report for one student on one unit. The unit's called On a Business Trip, because you can see on the top. It's got 7 lessons. Each lesson has 3 steps. And the questions are, what conclusions do you draw overall? Or about this. Remember, it's on one student. It's not the whole class, one student. Very, very focused. And what action should be taken? There's more thinking than writing. Okay, I suppose that's fair enough. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you my conclusions for the moment, because I haven't got, unless I'm not watching the chat, I can see you're still beginning to think. I mean, I can see there's not as much action as there was when I asked you the first time, or maybe it's much harder to draw a conclusion. All right, this is what I see. These some of the things I see. This student tends to skip the practice. They go in, they don't do the practice, and then they go on and do the test. Their grades aren't great. Means I would recommend that they actually do the practice. Their grades are not so great. The second thing is, take this. Did this test 3 times. His average test score is 45. The last time he did it was 55. He didn't do the practice. This is grammar, yes, no questions. Okay, so this needs follow-up of some kind. Me as a teacher, me to him. On the platform, I can assign the work again, whatever. In other words, it gives me a lot of information. So again, the student is skipping. All the test scores are low, especially grammar. They're taking the test too many times, or not necessarily, if we allow them to. And obviously advise the student to work consistently, not skip steps, and advise the students to look at the grammar, go to the grammar book, to work. The student's not doing the work, so how can they expect to get it right? Okay, so that's that. So I'm going to now leave the platform. Back to the platform, and I hope you can see it. Yeah, okay. Writing. Students send writing, and I don't know if I remind you, but those of you who were with me last time and those who weren't, by class, sorry. I choose my class, I can choose a specific student, which I'm going to do. Makes it easier for me. And I reminded you there are 2 types of writing that gets sent to the teacher's inbox, and most often the writing gets sent to the computer, to the e-rater. The student gets comments, the student then looks at those comments, resubmits, and then it gets sent to the teacher. And that's the stage. If you look here, this says 2 out of 2 submissions, means now it's reached the teacher. 1 out of 2 submissions means the student still has to send it in the second time. They haven't done it. So if I want to go and look in here, I now come to the student's work. I got my arrows with the comments. If I click on them, make it a bit smaller, see, okay. So I click on my arrows and I see here, you have short sentences here. I agree, you have short sentences. I'm going to keep that in there. Then it says spelling, the word is misspelled. I'm going to keep that in there. Then it says you have too many short sentences. How many times can I say it? So I'm going to remove it. Okay, I don't want it there. Then I see transitional words. I don't think that's relevant at this point. Then it says here, subject verb agreement, he don't. And I want to put in a personal comment here. So what I do is I say add. I click here where I want it to go. I wrote my comment here, which is he doesn't. I want to actually give the correction. Okay. I say, okay. And that means it'll be there for the student to see when I return the work. Now I've done whatever I want to do. I now want to grade it or rate it, not so much grade it. Summary, rate. Is this very good? Is this good? Or is this keep working? I think this is good. I've got example answers I can look at. I can use this rubric, development and language. On this level, it's not that useful. The student includes most key information. The student has used some supporting ideas. The student's writing is generally well organized. I don't know, it depends on what the question was and what the level is, but I'm going to say good. And then I find this is not that useful. So if I want to, I can simply get rid of it and write my own comment if I want to. I can delete all of this, write my own comment if I wanted to, or I could keep the rubric. And then I say approve and send feedback to the student or two. And that's the process of writing. If I don't remember the question, it's here. If I want to remember the explore text on which it was based, because I've got lots of work coming at me from all angles, I can see it. Okay. So that's with regard to writing and the reports on writing. Okay. Settings. Only one thing to show you here. As a teacher, language settings. I showed this to you before. Those of you who are with me before, you select your class, and you then can select the language settings for your class. In other words, Spanish and the degree of native support, and this will be the default for the class. If you want no English, you give no Spanish, you give full English support. If you want somewhere in the middle, like I've got at the moment, you give low support. If you want quite a lot of support in Spanish, where the menus change to Spanish, where the interface becomes Spanish, and you choose this, and that will appear as the default. We then have communication. In communication, you have your inbox, compose and sent. There's nothing for me special to explain here. If you want to write to your students, you simply write, compose, choose your class, choose your students, and write. However, there is one point I want to remind you. When you write, you can also put a little checkbox which says, send this to the students' external email, not inside the platform, and it will also go to their Gmail, whatever their email is updated in their profile. Okay, then we come to forums. Forums, you can create your own forum and then you give it to a class. A forum is something that you create so that the students can work and respond within the community site on a topic that you want to give them to respond to each other, to give to a forum. You know what a forum is. Okay. So a forum means they write responses to comments that other people write or that you write. So what you do here is you go to my forums. These are ones I've already created. Okay. And all you've got to do is press new. Can you see the pop-up or not on the side? Okay, you got to fill it out, press save. What's the title? What's the first message? And then your students will respond. And you can moderate the forum from here. But how do you give it to a class? You go to assign. The TMS works like this all the time. You choose your class. You say go. You say, I want to get, these are forums I've already created. I wanted them to do one on cell phones where I ask about which cell phones they use and why, and what do they use their cell phones for, or best foods in, which was this. Don't remember. Best foods in wherever. Okay. And then it's that becomes the topic of discussion and it will appear. So that is forums. Next is notification center. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'm going to actually spend a lot of time on this in our next session, which is on new features on how to create these. But it's pretty simple. Even so, you can go in and do it yourselves. No problem. It's really pretty obvious. You want to create a message that the student will see when they log on. Whatever it is, you want to create a message. So you press new. and it will give you a template which has to be filled in. Here's the template, the name, the class you wanted to go to, what you wanted to say. There's a link you can add to it. And that will be the first thing you do, save, at the bottom. And that'll be the first thing that the student will see when they log on. So once it's created, sorry about that. Once it's created, you click on publish, and like this one says published, it will then appear for the student. Administrators can do the same with regard to their teachers. They can send notifications to their teachers in the same way that a teacher can send a notification to the students. Then we have the online sessions. Online sessions are here. What does online sessions means? Means if you are teaching a student online and you've got a synchronous session in Zoom or in Teams or whatever you're using, you press. You can create something which appears on their platform, and I showed it to you last time. Again, this I'll go into in more detail on Thursday. New, you create it. Simple. You put in the beginning date, the end date, and the link, and which class you want it, and it'll appear on the platform for the student. Okay. Then you come to resources. Resources has PDF documents of all different kinds, and I had no intention of going through all of them, but just to tell you that they're here. Guidelines are things that you might find useful. Blending computer and classroom learning, English Discoveries Magazine pedagogical guidelines, teaching writing in English Discoveries, using teacher-student communication tools, all kinds of suggestions and ideas. Generic lesson plans, generic ideas for worksheets, and so on. These are all PDF documents for you to look at. If you find them useful, please do. But, and this is the point, here, scope and sequence is critical for you if you don't have a scope and sequence, which is basically the curriculum of your course. This will only be true for our standard courses. If you've got courses which are not standard, then you'd need to get the scope and sequence separate. But here, if you're teaching basic 1, it will be basic scope sequences. It will include basic 1, 2, and you'll be able to see the objectives of each lesson, the texts in each lesson, the vocabulary from each lesson, a complete mapping of what you're teaching or what your students are doing. So that's a really important piece of information to remember. We're almost at the end. I've got 2 more things to show you. My time is run out, actually, but let's say I started 2 or 3 minutes later than the time. So bear with me for those who can. Assessment and services. Both of them are important for you. Assessment is how you assign tests. I also am going to talk about a little bit more about this tomorrow, but test assignment and test configuration are the 2 important things that are here for you. Test assignment, for those who've done this in the past, and you're assigning now the midterm or the final course test. I'm not talking about the quizzes. And here, it's as simple as anything. You decide what test you're assigning. Is it the placement, which you wouldn't be assigning as a teacher? Generally, you wouldn't. Is it the midterm? Is it the final? Have you got the right to use a TOEIC test? Okay, whatever it is. So let's say it's midterm. I then choose my class. As always, you should have got it by now, 100%. Again, I could put it in a group if I wanted. I could choose one student if I wanted, but I don't. I'm going to say go. This will then give me the names of my students that I want to give it to. I can choose individual students, or I can go here and select all. Oops, select all. My test is here. Do I want to give them basic 1, basic 2, basic 3? That's because I've assigned them 3. You'd only have 1 name here if you have only 1 course. Okay, I want to give them basic 1. This is the start date. This is the time. This is the end date. This is the time. shouldn't be more than 3 days open. This means the day that they'll be able to start working. You could set it for an hour if you wanted. You could set it from 5 o'clock on Sunday, on Monday, till 6 o'clock on Monday if you're working like that. Or it could be over 2 or 3 days, not more than 3 days. Okay, you do save, and in that way you've got it. You also have the status, what I showed you before, assigned, expired, and so on. If it is, I've already assigned these. Okay. That's with regard to test assignments. What might be useful to you to know also in here is paper-based final tests. Now, this might be very useful for you. What we have here are what we call exit tests for each level and an answer key. That means it's another test for basic 1, not the same as the one on the platform. It's not the same on paper. It's a different test. In fact, it even is so different because it tests different skills. The test online has listening, and it has grammar, and it has reading comprehension, and it has vocabulary. This one can't have listening, but it does have writing. Okay, and you have to mark this one. The other one you don't have to mark. But it might be useful to use for, I can think of a million places where you might want to use this for practice, or in case you're stuck, or you want to give another test to somebody, and they're on the same level, they're on the same level and deals with the same materials. So it's a fair, it's another test, different, you can't say it's the same, but it's another test you might want to consider. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to have kept you slightly over the time, is this, and this is important, services, implementation. Here, lots of the things that I've talked about, you can get manuals on how to do, because I've moved too quickly, or you haven't really understood, or you want more detail, or there is more detail and I've skipped it, whatever the reasons are. In other words, if you want to know how to work on the notification center, which I didn't go into so much detail about, it's here. Okay. If you want to know how to look at reports and what to do with reports, which I spent quite a lot of time on, because that was the aim of today mostly. Okay, you can get it. And there's also stuff here which is meant for administrators, not only for teachers, how to upload students in large numbers onto the platform, or how to assign packages. That's not for teachers, but there is for administrators and coordinators, there certainly is material here. So as I said, I have now come to the end of what I have to say, and I'm more than happy to take any questions. If anybody would like to leave, this is the time, because I know we're over the time, as I kept on saying. So I haven't looked. I can see the questions in the chat. Oh gosh. Let me look there quickly. Marcella says, you mentioned the font size of the magazine can be changed. Can students change their lesson font size? No, not that I know of. No, this is in the magazine an option, but you can make it bigger or smaller simply by making it bigger or smaller by changing the size of the what do you call it? The resolution on the screen. You can make it bigger and smaller, or you scroll with your mouse, and it can make things bigger and smaller. I do that all the time. So that's an option. Any other? My pleasure, Christopher. Let's just see if there are any other questions there. No, I don't see questions at this point. You mentioned font size, I can see it there. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually going to now stop the recording. This is going to be the official end of the recorded session, but anybody who wishes to stay on and ask questions, this is certainly fine by me. Okay, so I'm stopping and